Victoria Sterling stood in the middle of her company's huge lobby. Her high heels clicked loudly on the marble floor as she walked back and forth. She was angry, very angry. The rich man who had just tried to play piano for her was walking away, with his head down. He had played so badly that Victoria wanted to cover her ears. "That was terrible," Victoria said loudly. She did not care who heard her. "How can you call yourself a musician when you play like that?" The man, dressed in an expensive suit, hurried toward the elevator. His face was red with shame. He had thought he could win Victoria's heart with his piano skills. He was wrong. Very wrong. Victoria was 28 years old and one of the richest women in America. She had built her technology company from nothing. Now it was worth billions of dollars. She lived in a huge apartment in Manhattan. She owned fast cars, beautiful jewelry, and expensive clothes. But Victoria had one big problem. She could not find a man who was good enough for her. Victoria loved music more than anything else. She had learned to play piano when she was just 4 years old. By the time she was 16, she could play the most difficult pieces. Music was her passion. It was also her test for any man who wanted to marry her. The lobby was full of people. Rich men in expensive suits stood around talking. They had all come to try to win Victoria's love. Some were business owners. Others were lawyers or doctors. A few were famous musicians. But none of them had played well enough to make Victoria happy. "Listen to me," Victoria shouted. Everyone in the lobby turned to look at her. "I am tired of men who think they can play piano but cannot. I am tired of people who waste my time." Victoria walked to the beautiful black piano that sat in the corner of the lobby. She had put it there so people could play for her. She touched the smooth surface with her hand. "This piano cost more than most people make in a year," Victoria said. "It deserves to be played by someone with real talent, not by people who think. Money can buy musical skill." The crowd of rich men moved closer. They wanted to hear what Victoria would say next. Some of them were planning to try playing the piano themselves. They thought their money and success would help them win her heart. Victoria climbed onto a chair so everyone could see her better. She was a small woman, but her voice was strong and clear. "I have a challenge for all of you," Victoria announced. "And for any man in this city who thinks he is good enough for me." The lobby became very quiet. Even the workers who were cleaning nearby stopped what they were doing to listen. "Play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, Victoria said. "Slowly. Play it perfectly. Play it with feeling. Play it like you understand what the music means. Do that, and I will marry you." The rich men looked at each other with worried faces. They all knew about Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. It was one of the hardest pieces of music ever written. Even professional pianists were scared to play it. It took years of practice to learn. Most people could never play it well. "Are you serious?" asked a man with gray hair. He owned several hotels and thought he was very important. "Dead serious," Victoria replied. "I have been looking for a husband for 3 years. I have dated doctors, lawyers, business owners, and even professional musicians. None of them could play piano well enough to touch my heart. So now I'm making it simple. Play that one piece perfectly, and you win everything. My love, my hand in marriage, and a life with me." A young man with blonde hair stepped forward. He was the son of a famous banker. "But Victoria, that piece is impossible for most people. It takes years to learn." Victoria smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Then you better start practicing. Or find someone who already knows how to play it." The crowd started talking loudly. Some men were excited by the challenge. Others looked scared. A few were already making phone calls to find piano teachers. "There must be a time limit," said another man. "You cannot make us wait forever," Victoria thought for a moment. "Fine, you have 6 months. If no one can play it perfectly, in 6 months I will never get married. I will focus only on my business and my music." The men started talking even louder. 6 months was not very long to learn such a difficult piece. But it was their only chance to marry one of the richest women in the world. "What if we can play it, but not perfectly?" asked a man with a thick mustache. Then you lose, Victoria said firmly. Perfect means perfect. Every note must be right. The timing must be exact. And you must play it with real feeling. I will know if you are just playing notes without understanding the music. Victoria stepped down from the chair. She smoothed her expensive dress and fixed her long black hair. I'm going back to my office now, she said. Good luck to all of you. You will need it. Victoria started walking toward the elevator. The crowd of men watched her go. Some of them were already planning how they would learn the difficult piece. Others were thinking about giving up before they even tried. As Victoria waited for the elevator, she heard the men behind her talking loudly. They were making bets about who could learn the piece first. They were calling piano teachers and music schools. Some were even arguing about who had the best chance to win. The elevator doors opened, and Victoria stepped inside. As the doors closed, she could still hear the excited voices from the lobby. She smiled to herself. Maybe this challenge would finally help her find a man who truly understood music the way she did, but Victoria did not notice the quiet man in the corner of the lobby. He was wearing simple work clothes and holding a mop. He had been cleaning the floor during her announcement. While all the rich men talked and argued, he stood silently, thinking about the piece Victoria had mentioned. The man's name was Miguel Santos, and he already knew how to play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 perfectly. Miguel Santos pushed his cleaning cart to the far corner of the lobby. He tried to stay out of the way while the rich men talked loudly about Victoria's challenge. Miguel was 35 years old, but he looked older. Years of hard work had made lines around his eyes. His hands were rough from cleaning floors and washing windows. Miguel wore a blue uniform with his name tag pinned to his shirt. His black hair was starting to turn gray at the sides. He was not tall, but he was strong, from carrying heavy cleaning supplies every day. Nobody in the fancy lobby looked at him. To them, he was invisible, just another worker doing his job, but Miguel was listening to every word the rich men said. When Victoria had announced her challenge, Miguel's heart had started beating faster. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. He knew that piece better than he knew his own name. Miguel continued mopping the marble floor, but his mind was far away. He was remembering when he was 16 years old and had first learned to play that beautiful, difficult music. Back then, everyone said Miguel was a genius. His piano teacher had tears in her eyes when she heard him play. Music schools wanted him to study with them. His future looked bright and full of promise. The rich men were still talking loudly about Victoria's challenge. Miguel heard one of them say he would hire the best piano teacher in the city. Another man said he would practice 8 hours every day. They all sounded worried, but excited. Miguel dipped his mop in the bucket of soapy water. As he cleaned, he thought about his small apartment in the Bronx. It was very different from the fancy offices where he worked. His apartment had thin walls, old furniture, and a tiny kitchen. But in the corner of his living room sat his most precious thing. It was an old electronic keyboard that he had bought at a used store many years ago. The keyboard was missing some keys. The sound was not very good, but it was all Miguel could afford. Every night after work, he would sit at that keyboard and play. His fingers remembered all the music he had learned when he was young. Rachmaninoff, Chopin, Mozart, Beethoven. He played them all from memory in his small, quiet apartment. Miguel's mother, Rosa, lived with him. She was 62 years old and very sick. She had diabetes and could not work anymore. Miguel paid for her medicine and doctor visits. His younger sister Carmen was 25 and worked at a store in their neighborhood. She had a baby daughter, and her husband had left them last year. Miguel helped take care of them too. This was why Miguel cleaned office buildings at night instead of playing piano in concert halls. His family needed money for food, rent, and medicine. Music was beautiful, but it did not pay the bills. Miguel had learned this lesson when he was very young. The rich men started leaving the lobby. They were going home to start practicing or to find piano teachers. Miguel watched them go. They all wore expensive suits and drove fancy cars. They had money to pay for the best teachers and the best pianos. They could practice all day if they Wanted to. Miguel squeezed out his mop and continued cleaning. He thought about the day he had left music school. He was 17 years old then. His father had been in a car accident and could not work anymore. His mother was working 2 jobs but still could not pay all the bills. Miguel had to choose. Between his music dreams and his family. The choice was easy. Family came first. It always came first. Miguel had quit music school and gotten a job washing dishes in a restaurant. Later, he found work cleaning offices. It was better money and he could work at night. During the day, he took care of his sick father until the man died 3 years later, but Miguel never stopped playing music. Even when he was tired from work, even when his hands hurt from cleaning chemicals, he would sit at his old keyboard and play. Music was still the most important thing in his heart, even if it could not be the most important thing in his life. Now, 20 years later, Miguel was still cleaning offices. His mother was sicker, and he had more people depending on him. But he could still play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 perfectly. He played it from his heart, not just his fingers. Miguel finished cleaning the lobby floor. The rich men were all gone now. The big room was quiet except for the sound of his cleaning cartwheels on the marble. He looked at the beautiful black piano in the corner. Victoria had said it cost more than most people made in a year. Miguel made about $30,000 a year. The piano probably cost much more than that. Miguel had never touched such an expensive piano. At the music school, he had played on good pianos, but nothing like this one. He wondered how it would sound. He wondered how it would feel under his fingers, but Miguel was just the janitor. He was not supposed to touch things that belonged to rich people. His job was to clean around them, not to use them. Miguel pushed his cart toward the elevator. His shift was not over yet. He had to clean 10 more floors before he could go home. Each floor had offices full of expensive computers, fancy furniture, and important papers. Miguel cleaned them all carefully. He never touched anything he was not supposed to touch. As the elevator carried him up to the next floor, Miguel thought about Victoria Sterling. He had seen her many times during his years working in this building. She was always dressed beautifully and walked very fast. She never looked at him or said hello. He was invisible to her, just like he was invisible to everyone else who worked in the fancy offices. Miguel wondered what Victoria would think if she knew that the man who mopped her lobby floor could play the piece she had challenged rich men to learn. Would she laugh? Would she be angry? Would she believe it? Probably not. People like Victoria did not think people like Miguel could do amazing things. Poor people were supposed to clean floors and empty trash cans. They were not supposed to be musical geniuses. Miguel started cleaning the next floor. He wiped down desks, emptied wastebaskets, and vacuumed carpets. While he worked, his fingers moved in the patterns of Rachmaninoff's concerto. He could not help it. The music was always with him, even when his hands were holding cleaning supplies instead of touching piano keys. Miguel thought about Victoria's promise. She would marry any man who could play the piece perfectly. Miguel could play it perfectly. He had been playing it perfectly for almost 20 years, but Miguel would never try to take Victoria's challenge. He was not rich or important. He did not wear expensive suits or own fancy cars. He was just a janitor from the Bronx who happened to know how to play beautiful music. Victoria Sterling would never marry someone like him, and Miguel would never ask her to. 3 weeks had passed since Victoria's challenge. Miguel continued his nightly cleaning routine, but something had changed inside him. Every time he walked through the lobby and saw the beautiful black piano, he felt a pull in his heart. The instrument seemed to call to him. Miguel tried to ignore these feelings. He had work to do. His mother needed her medicine. His sister needed help with groceries. There was no time for foolish dreams about playing expensive pianos, but late at night, when the building was empty and quiet, Miguel found himself stopping to look at the piano. He would stand next to it while he cleaned the lobby floor. Sometimes he would touch the smooth black surface very gently with one finger. The piano was always perfectly clean and shiny. Miguel knew that Victoria Sterling had an office on the 40th floor. He cleaned her floor every Tuesday and Friday night. Her office was the biggest one on that floor. It had huge windows that looked out over the city. The office also had something that made Miguel's heart beat faster every time. He saw it. Victoria had a piano in her office too. It was not as big as the one in the lobby, but it was still beautiful. It was white and sat near the tall windows. Sheet music was always scattered on top of it. Miguel could see the music when he dusted Victoria's desk, but he never touched the piano. He was too afraid. Miguel had been cleaning Victoria's office. For 2 years, he had watched her work late many nights. Sometimes she would stop working at her computer and play the piano. Miguel would hear the music while he cleaned other offices on the same floor. Victoria played very well, but Miguel could tell she was not putting her whole heart into it. She played the notes correctly, but something was missing. One Friday night in October, Miguel was cleaning Victoria's office like usual. It was almost midnight, and the building was completely empty. Miguel had checked all the floors. Everyone had gone home hours ago. Even the security guards were on the lower floors. Miguel was dusting Victoria's desk when he saw something that made him stop breathing. On the piano was a piece of sheet music he knew very well. It was Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. The same piece Victoria had challenged the rich men to play. Miguel walked slowly toward the piano. His hands were shaking a little. He looked at the music, but he did not need to read it. He knew every note by heart. Miguel looked around the office. He was completely alone. The door was closed. No one could see him. He set down his cleaning cloth and sat on the piano bench. The bench was soft and comfortable. Much better than the hard chair he used with his old keyboard at home. Miguel placed his hands on the piano keys. They felt smooth and perfect under his fingers. Miguel pressed one key very softly. The sound was beautiful. It was clear and rich, like nothing he had ever heard before. This piano was worth more money than Miguel would make in his whole life. Miguel looked around the office one more time. He was still alone. He took a deep breath and began to play. The first notes of Rachmaninoff's concerto filled the quiet office. Miguel's fingers moved across the keys like they were meant to be there. And music poured out of him like water from a broken dam. All the years of practicing on his broken keyboard at home had not been wasted. His hands remembered everything. Miguel played the slow, sad beginning of the piece. Then came the fast, exciting parts that made his heart race. His fingers flew across the keys, playing notes so quickly they seemed to dance. The beautiful piano responded to every touch, every feeling Miguel put into the music. Miguel forgot where he was. He forgot about his cleaning cart waiting in the hallway. He forgot about his uniform and his rough hands. He was not a janitor anymore. He was a musician, playing the most beautiful music ever written on the most perfect piano he had ever touched. The concerto lasted about 40 minutes. Miguel played every note perfectly. When he finished, he sat quietly for a moment. His heart was beating fast and his hands were trembling. He had not felt this happy in 20 years. Miguel looked at the clock on Victoria's desk. It was almost 1 in the morning. He had been playing for much longer than he thought. He needed to finish his cleaning and go home. His mother would be worried if he was too late. Miguel stood up from the piano bench. He felt different, like something inside him had woken up after sleeping for a long time. He looked at the piano keys one more time, then covered them with the soft cloth that protected them. Miguel finished cleaning Victoria's office quickly. He dusted her desk, emptied her trash can, and vacuumed the carpet, but his mind was still full of music. His fingers still felt the memory of the perfect piano keys. When Miguel got home that night, he could not sleep. He sat at his old keyboard in the living room and played very quietly so he would not wake his mother. But the broken keys and tinny sound disappointed him now. After playing Victoria's beautiful piano, his old keyboard seemed like a toy. The next week, Miguel found himself thinking about Victoria's piano all the time. While he cleaned other offices, he thought about the way the keys felt under his fingers. While he ate lunch, he thought about the rich, clear sound of the notes. While he helped his mother with her medicine, he thought about how perfect the Music had sounded in that quiet office. Miguel told himself he should not play the piano again. It was not his piano, he was just the janitor. He was supposed to clean the office, not use the things inside it, but the next Friday night, when Miguel was cleaning Victoria's office again, he could not help himself. The sheet music was still. On the piano, the office was still empty and quiet. Miguel sat down at the piano bench and played the concerto again. This time he played even better. His fingers were more confident. He put more feeling into the sad parts and more excitement into the fast parts. The music filled the office and made Miguel feel alive in a way he had almost forgotten. Week after week, Miguel continued his secret concerts. Every Tuesday and Friday night, when he cleaned Victoria's office, he would play the piano. Sometimes he played Rachmaninoff's concerto. Other times he played Chopin or Mozart or Beethoven. All the beautiful music he had learned as a young man came flowing back. Miguel was careful to leave everything exactly as he found it. He always covered the piano keys when he finished. He never moved the sheet music or the piano bench. He made sure Victoria would never know that anyone had touched her piano, but what Miguel did not know was that the office building had security cameras in every room. The cameras recorded everything that happened, even at night when the building was empty. And what Miguel did not know was that somewhere in the building all of his secret concerts were being recorded. Victoria Sterling sat in her apartment at 2 in the morning, staring at her laptop screen. She could not sleep again. This had been happening for weeks now. Her mind was too busy with work problems and stress. The big business deal she was working on was giving her headaches during the day and keeping her awake at night. Victoria closed her laptop and got dressed. When she could not sleep, she often went to her office to work. The building was quiet at night and she could think better. There, she drove her expensive car through the empty streets of Manhattan. The city looked different at night. Peaceful and calm, Victoria used her keycard to enter the building. The lobby was dark except for a few security lights. The night security guard was surprised to see her. "Working late again, Miss Sterling?" he asked. "Can't sleep," Victoria replied. "I'll just be in my office for a few hours." Victoria took the elevator to the 40th floor. The hallway was quiet and dark. She walked to her office and opened the door. She turned on the lights and saw that everything was clean and neat. The night cleaning crew had already been here. Victoria sat at her desk and tried to work on her computer, but her mind kept wandering. The stress of the past few weeks was making it hard to think clearly. She looked at the numbers on her screen, but they did not make sense to her tired brain. Victoria stood up and walked to her piano. Sometimes playing music helped her relax and think more clearly. She sat on the piano bench and placed her hands on the keys. The piano was perfectly clean and shiny, just like always. Victoria began to play a piece by Chopin. It was one of her favorites, but tonight her playing sounded flat and boring to her own ears. Her fingers hit the right notes, but there was no feeling in the music. She was too tired and stressed to play well. Victoria stopped playing and sighed. Even her music was not helping tonight. She looked at the sheet music on top of the piano. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 was still there, just like it had been for weeks. She had put it there the day after her challenge to the rich men in the lobby. Victoria had been thinking about her challenge a lot lately. It had been almost 2 months now, and no one had come to play for her yet. A few men had called her assistant to ask for more time. Others had given up completely. Victoria was starting to think that maybe no one in the whole city could play that difficult piece well enough to win her challenge. Victoria was about to go back to her desk when she heard something that made her freeze. It was music. Beautiful, perfect music coming from somewhere nearby. Someone was playing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, but that was impossible. The building was empty except for her and the security guard. Victoria listened more carefully. The music was definitely coming from her floor, but not from her office. It sounded like it was coming from down the hallway. Victoria walked quietly to her office door and opened it a little. The music was clearer now. It was coming from the conference room at the end of the hall. But there was no piano in the conference room. Victoria was confused. Victoria tiptoed down the dark hallway toward the music. As she got closer, she realized she had made a mistake. The music was not coming from the conference room. It was coming from her own office. Someone was in her office playing her piano. Victoria's heart started beating fast. Who could be in her office? How did they get in? She thought about calling security, but something stopped her. The music was so beautiful, so perfect that she did not want it to stop. Victoria crept back toward her office door. She stayed in the shadows where no one could see her. Very carefully, she looked through the open door. What she saw made her gasp quietly. A man was sitting at her piano, playing Rachmaninoff's concerto with more skill and feeling than Victoria had ever heard before. But this was not one of the rich men who had accepted her challenge. This man was wearing a blue janitor's uniform. Victoria recognized him immediately. It was Miguel Santos, the quiet man who cleaned her office twice a week. She had seen him many times over the past 2 years, but she had never really looked at him. He was just part of the background, like the furniture or the cleaning supplies. But now Victoria looked at Miguel very carefully. His eyes were closed as he played, and his face showed deep concentration and joy. His hands moved across the piano keys like they were dancing. Every note was perfect. Every phrase was full of emotion. Victoria had heard many professional pianists play this piece. Some of them were famous concert performers who had studied music their whole lives. But none of them had played it like this. Miguel was not just playing the notes. He was telling a story with the music. He was sharing his heart. Through his fingers, Victoria stood in the doorway, unable to move. She was watching something magical happen in her own office. This janitor, this man she had never really noticed, was playing like an angel. The concerto had many different parts. Some were slow and sad, like a person crying. Others were fast and exciting, like a race or a celebration. Miguel played all of them perfectly. When the music was sad, Victoria could see sadness in his face. When it was exciting, she could see joy and energy in the way he moved. Victoria realized that tears were running down her cheeks. She had not cried from hearing music in many years, but Miguel's playing touched something deep inside her heart. This was how music was supposed to sound. This was how it was supposed to make people feel. The concerto lasted almost 40 minutes. Victoria stood in the hallway the whole time, afraid to move or make any sound. She did not want to interrupt the most beautiful music she had ever heard. When Miguel finished playing, he sat quietly for a moment with his hands still on the keys. Victoria could see that he was breathing hard, like he had just run a long race. Then Miguel stood up, covered the piano keys with the soft cloth, and picked up his cleaning supplies. Victoria quickly moved away from the door and hid behind a corner. She watched Miguel leave her office and walk down the hallway with his cleaning cart. He looked tired but happy. Victoria waited until she heard the elevator doors close before she went back into her office. Victoria sat at her piano bench and looked at the keys. They were warm from Miguel's touch. She could hardly believe what she had just witnessed. The man who cleaned her floors could play piano better than anyone she had ever heard. Victoria tried to play the same piece Miguel had just finished. Her fingers stumbled over the difficult parts. Her playing sounded clumsy and cold compared to Miguel's beautiful performance. Victoria stopped playing and stared at the piano keys. She had so many questions. How had Miguel learned to play so well? Why was he working as a janitor if he had such incredible talent? How long had he been using her piano? Victoria looked around her office. Everything looked normal. Miguel had been very careful not to disturb anything. If she had not heard him playing, she would never have known he had been there. Victoria walked to her desk and turned on her computer. She opened the security camera system for the building. Every office had cameras that recorded everything that happened. Victoria had never looked at the recordings from her own office before, but now she was very curious. Victoria found the recordings from that night and rewound them to see what had happened before she arrived. She watched Miguel enter her office with his cleaning cart. She watched him dust her desk and empty her trash can like usual. Then she watched him stop and look at the piano. Victoria held her breath as she watched Miguel sit down at the piano bench. On the computer screen, she saw him begin to play. Even without sound, she could see the passion and skill in the way he moved. Victoria fast-forwarded through the recording. Miguel had played for almost 40 minutes before she arrived. She rewound the recording and watched it again. She could not believe what she was seeing. Victoria checked the recordings from other nights. She went back weeks and weeks, watching Miguel clean her office. Most nights he just cleaned and left. But on some nights, Miguel would sit at the piano and play. Victoria counted the nights. Miguel had been using her piano for almost 2 months, ever since the night she had made her challenge in the lobby. And every time he played, it was perfect. Victoria could not stop thinking about Miguel Santos. For 3 days after discovering him in her office, she watched the security recordings over and over again. Each time she saw him play, she was more amazed. This janitor played piano better than anyone she had ever heard, including herself. Victoria had many questions, but she did not know how to get answers. She could not just walk up to Miguel and ask him about his piano playing. He would know that she had been watching him, and he might get scared and stop playing. Victoria did not want that to happen. She wanted to understand who Miguel really was. Victoria decided to learn everything she could about Miguel Santos. She started with his employee file. Victoria owned the company, so she could look at any worker's information. She opened Miguel's file on her computer and began to read. Miguel Santos, age 35. Born in the Bronx, New York, he had been working for the cleaning company for 15 years. Before that, he had worked at a restaurant washing dishes. His supervisor said Miguel was a good worker who was always on time and never caused problems, but the file did not tell Victoria what she really wanted to know. It did not explain how Miguel had learned to play piano so well. It did not tell her why such a talented musician was working as a janitor. Victoria needed more information. She called her assistant Jennifer into her office. "I need you to find out everything you can about one of our cleaning staff," Victoria said. "His name is Miguel Santos, but I want you to be very careful. He should not know that we are looking into his background." Jennifer looked confused. "Is there a problem with his work?" "No problem," Victoria said quickly. "I just need some information about him. Can you do this quietly?" "Of course," Jennifer said. "What kind of information do you need?" "Everything. Where he went to school, where he has worked, where he lives now, his family situation, anything you can find." Jennifer nodded and left to start her research. Victoria tried to work on other things, but she could not concentrate. She kept thinking about Miguel's beautiful music and wondering about his story. 2 days later, Jennifer came back to Victoria's office with a thick folder of papers. "This is very interesting," Jennifer said. "Miguel Santos is not just a janitor." Victoria's heart beat faster. "What did you find?" Jennifer opened the folder and pulled out several papers. Miguel Santos was accepted to study at the famous music school when he was 16 years old. He got a full scholarship because he was so talented. But he only stayed for 1 semester before he quit. Victoria leaned forward in her chair. "Why did he quit?" "His father was hurt in a car accident and could not work anymore. Miguel's family needed money badly. So Miguel left school and got a job to help support them." Jennifer pulled out more papers. Miguel was considered a musical genius when he was young. His piano teacher said he was the most talented student she had ever taught. Music critics who heard him play said he could have become one of the greatest pianists in the world. Victoria felt sad as she listened. Miguel had given up his dreams to help his family. What about his family now? His father died 3 years after the accident. Miguel lives with his sick mother in a small apartment in the Bronx. He also helps support his younger sister and her baby daughter. His sister's husband left them last year. Jennifer showed Victoria a copy of Miguel's address and some photographs of his neighborhood. It was a poor area with old buildings and narrow streets. Very different from Victoria's expensive Manhattan apartment. "Miguel makes about $30,000 a year," Jennifer continued. "Most of that money goes to rent, food, and his mother's medical bills. He has been working 2 jobs for the past few years. He cleans offices at night and works at a grocery store during the day on weekends. Victoria felt her chest tighten. Miguel was working so hard just to survive, and he was doing it to take care of other people. "There's more," Jennifer said. "I talked to some people who knew Miguel when he was young. They all said the same thing. Miguel was not just talented. He was special. He played music like it came from his soul, not just from his fingers." Jennifer pulled out a yellowed newspaper. Clipping. This is from when Miguel was 17. He played a concert at his high school. The music reviewer from the local newspaper wrote this article about him. Victoria read the article carefully. The reviewer had written, "Young Miguel Santos does not just play piano. He speaks to your heart through the keys. When he plays, you forget where you are. You forget everything except the beautiful music. This young man has a gift that comes along once in a lifetime." Victoria looked at the date on the newspaper clipping. It was from 18 years ago. Miguel had been playing beautifully for a very long time. "Is there anything else?" Victoria asked. Jennifer nodded. "I found something interesting. Miguel still practices piano. His neighbors say they sometimes hear music coming from his apartment late at night, but it's very quiet, like he's trying not to bother anyone." Victoria thought about Miguel's poor neighborhood and his small apartment. He probably had an old, cheap piano or keyboard. Nothing like the beautiful instruments at the music school. Or in her office. "One more thing," Jennifer said. Miguel volunteers at a community center in his neighborhood. He teaches piano to children whose families cannot afford music lessons. The children love him. Their parents say Miguel is very patient and kind. Victoria was quiet for a long time after Jennifer left. She sat in her office thinking about everything she had learned. Miguel Santos was not just a talented janitor, he was a man who had given up his dreams to help others. He was still sharing his musical gift, even though he could not use it to make money. Victoria looked at her expensive piano. She had bought it because she loved music and could afford the best instruments. But Miguel, who loved music even more and played it better, could only afford a broken keyboard in a tiny apartment. Victoria thought about all the rich men who had accepted her challenge. They were taking expensive piano lessons and buying the best instruments. They had all the money and time they needed to learn Rachmaninoff's difficult concerto, but the man who could already play it perfectly was working 2 jobs just to pay for food and rent. He was invisible to people like Victoria. Even though he had more talent than all the rich men put together, Victoria made a decision. She wanted to know more about Miguel Santos. She wanted to understand how someone so talented had ended up cleaning floors instead of playing in concert halls. And she wanted to help him somehow, if she could, but Victoria had to be very careful. Miguel had been using her piano secretly for months. If he knew she had discovered him, he might be embarrassed or scared. He might stop playing altogether. Victoria needed a plan. She needed a way to help Miguel without making him feel bad or worried. She needed to find a way to change his life without ruining the beautiful music he played in her quiet office late at night. Victoria spent a week thinking about how to help Miguel without embarrassing him. She could not just walk up to him and say she knew about his piano playing. Miguel would feel terrible about using her piano without permission. He might even lose his job. Victoria needed a plan that would give Miguel a chance to show his talent to everyone. But it had to seem natural and innocent. Miguel should not feel like he was being tricked or forced to do anything. Then Victoria had an idea. Victoria called a meeting with all the managers in her company. She told them she wanted to plan a special event for all the workers. "I think we should have a talent show," Victoria announced. "Something fun for everyone who works in our building. Office workers, security guards, cleaning staff, everyone." The managers looked surprised. Victoria was not usually interested in fun events for workers. She was always focused on business and making money. "What kind of talent show?" asked Mr. Peterson, the manager of human resources. "Any kind of talent," Victoria said. "Singing, dancing, playing music, telling jokes, anything. We will have it in the big conference room on the 20th floor. We can set up a stage and invite everyone to watch." "That sounds nice," said Mrs. Chun, the office manager. "But why do you want to do this now?" Victoria had prepared an answer for this question. "I have been thinking about our workers lately. They work very hard for our company. I want to do something to show that we appreciate them. A talent show would be fun and bring everyone together." The managers agreed that a talent show was a good idea. They started planning right away. They would put up signs around the building to tell everyone about the event. Any worker could sign up to perform. There would be prizes for the best performances. Victoria had one special request. Make sure the cleaning staff knows about the talent show. Sometimes night workers miss out on company events because they work different hours. I want everyone to have a chance to participate. The managers promised to tell all the workers about the talent show, including the night cleaning crew. Victoria also had another plan. She wanted to make sure there would be a piano available for anyone who wanted to play music. "Let's move the piano from the lobby up to the conference room for the talent show," Victoria suggested. "That way, people can play music if they want." 2. The managers thought this was a good idea. The beautiful black piano would make the stage look very professional. Victoria was excited about her plan, but she was also nervous. She hoped Miguel would want to participate in the talent show, but she could not force him to do it. Miguel would have to make the choice himself. The signs about the talent show went up all around the building. Workers started talking about it with excitement. Some people were planning to sing popular songs. Others wanted to tell funny stories or show magic tricks. Victoria watched the sign-up sheet carefully. Every day, more names were added to the list. But Miguel Santos was not one of them. Victoria started to worry. Maybe Miguel was too shy to perform in front of people. Maybe he thought his piano playing was not good enough. Maybe he was afraid. People would laugh at him. Victoria decided she needed help. She could not talk to Miguel directly, but maybe someone else could encourage him to sign up for the talent show. Victoria found out who Miguel's supervisor was. His name was Carlos Rivera, and he managed the night cleaning crew. Victoria called Carlos to her office. "I want to make sure all the night workers know about our talent show," Victoria told Carlos. "Has everyone heard about it?" "Yes, Miss Sterling," Carlos said. "I told all my workers about the talent show. Some of them are very excited." "What about Miguel Santos?" Victoria asked, trying to sound casual. "Is he planning to participate?" Carlos shook his head. "Miguel is very quiet. He does not like to be the center of attention." "I do not think he will sign up." Victoria's heart sank. But she was not ready to give up yet. "Does Miguel have any special talents?" Victoria asked. "Maybe we could encourage him to share them." Carlos smiled. "Actually, yes. Miguel is very good at music. Sometimes the other workers ask him questions about songs or instruments. He knows a lot about classical music." "Really?" Victoria tried to sound surprised. "Does he play any instruments?" "I think so," Carlos said. One time, Miguel was humming a song while he worked. It was very beautiful. When I asked him about it, he said he used to play piano when he was younger. Victoria felt excited, but she kept her voice calm. "Maybe you could encourage Miguel to play something for the talent show." "We will have a piano available." Carlos looked doubtful. "I can try, but Miguel is very modest. He does not like to show off." "Just let him know that everyone is welcome to participate," Victoria said. "Tell him it's just for fun, no pressure." Carlos promised to talk to Miguel about the talent show. Victoria also had one more idea. She wanted to make sure Miguel would have the right music to play if he decided to participate. Victoria went to her office and got the sheet music for Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. She took it down to the conference room where the piano had been moved for the talent show. Victoria left the sheet music on top of the piano with a note that said, "For anyone brave enough to try." She made sure the music and note would be easy to see. Then Victoria waited. The talent show was scheduled for the following Friday evening. Victoria had arranged for it to be held after regular work hours so the night shift workers could attend before starting their jobs every day. Victoria checked the sign-up sheet. More names were added, but Miguel's name was still not there. Victoria started to think her plan might not work. On Wednesday, 2 days before the talent show, Victoria was working late in her office. She heard Miguel's cleaning cart in the hallway and knew he was starting his shift. Victoria waited a few minutes, then walked down to the conference room. The piano was in its new location on the small stage. The sheet music was still on top of it, exactly where Victoria had left it. Miguel had not taken it or even touched it. Victoria felt disappointed. Maybe Miguel would never feel comfortable performing in front of people. Maybe his musical talent would always remain a secret, but Victoria was not ready to give up completely. She had one more day to hope that Miguel would change his mind about the talent show. On Thursday evening, Victoria stayed late at work again. She wanted to see if Miguel would notice the piano in its new location. Victoria hid in an empty office near the conference room and waited. Around midnight, Victoria heard Miguel's cleaning cart approaching. She peeked out and saw Miguel enter the conference room with his cleaning supplies. He stopped when he saw the piano on the stage. Miguel walked slowly toward the piano. He saw the sheet music on top of it and picked it up. Victoria watched as Miguel read the note she had written. He looked around the empty room, then sat down at the piano bench. Miguel placed his hands on the keys and began to play very softly. Even though the music was quiet, Victoria could hear that it was beautiful. Miguel was playing Rachmaninoff's Concerto, the same piece that was written on the sheet music. Victoria's heart filled with hope. Miguel was still playing, even in this new location. Maybe, just maybe, he would be brave enough to play for other people at the talent show? Friday evening arrived, and the conference room was full of people. Workers from every department had come to watch the talent show. Office workers sat next to security guards. Managers sat next to janitors. Everyone was excited to see what their co-workers could do. Victoria sat in the front row, but she tried to look calm and relaxed. Inside, her heart was beating fast. She kept looking at the entrance, hoping to see Miguel walk through the door. The talent show began at 6 o'clock. The first performer was a young woman from the accounting department who sang a popular song. She was good, and everyone clapped when she finished. Next, 2 men from the mailroom did a funny comedy act that made everyone laugh. Victoria watched each performance, but her mind was somewhere else. She kept thinking about Miguel. He still had not signed up for the talent show. Victoria was starting to think he would not come at all. More people performed. A security guard played guitar and sang country music. A woman from Human Resources did a magic trick with cards. Everyone was having fun, but Victoria felt sad. Her plan to help Miguel was not working. Then, just as the talent show was halfway finished, Victoria saw Miguel enter the room. He was wearing his regular work clothes, but they were clean and neat. Miguel looked nervous as he found an empty seat in the back of the room. Victoria's heart jumped with excitement. Miguel had come to watch even if he was not going to perform. That was something, at least. Carlos Rivera, Miguel's supervisor, was sitting near Miguel. Victoria watched as Carlos leaned over and whispered something to Miguel. Miguel shook his head and looked down at his hands. Carlos kept talking quietly to Miguel, trying to encourage him. More performers took the stage. A woman from the reception desk danced to Latin music. A man from the computer department told jokes. The audience clapped and cheered for everyone. Finally, it was time for the last few performers. Victoria looked at her list. Only 3 people were left. She was running out of hope that Miguel would change his mind. Then something happened that Victoria did not expect. Carlos Rivera stood up and walked to the front of the room. "Excuse me," Carlos said loudly. "I know the sign-up time is over, but I have one more performer who would like to participate." Victoria's heart stopped. She looked back at Miguel, who was shaking his head and looking very embarrassed. "My friend Miguel Santos has a special talent," Carlos continued. "He is too modest to sign up himself, but I think everyone would enjoy hearing him play piano." The audience turned to look at Miguel. Some people smiled and started clapping, encouraging him to come forward. Miguel looked like he wanted to disappear. "Come on, Miguel," called out Rosa, one of the other cleaning staff. "We know you can play." We hear you humming beautiful music all the time. Other workers began encouraging Miguel, too. They had no idea how talented he really was, but they liked Miguel and wanted to support him. Miguel stood up slowly. His face was red with embarrassment, but he walked toward the front of the room. Victoria could hardly breathe as she watched him approach the stage. Miguel climbed the steps to the small stage where the piano waited. The conference room became very quiet. Everyone could see that Miguel was nervous. His hands were shaking a little as he sat down at the piano bench. Miguel looked out at all the faces watching him. Victoria could see fear in his eyes. He had probably never played in front of so many people before. Miguel placed his hands on the piano keys, then took them away again. He looked down at the sheet music that was still on top of the piano. It was Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, the same piece Victoria had challenged the rich men to play months ago. The audience waited patiently. They could see that Miguel was struggling to find courage. Some people whispered words of encouragement. "Take your time," called out Jennifer, Victoria's assistant. "We're all friends here." Miguel took a deep breath and placed his hands on the keys again. This time he did not take them away. Very softly he began to play. The first notes of Rachmaninoff's concerto filled the quiet room. Even though Miguel was playing very gently, the sound was clear and beautiful. The audience sat perfectly still, listening. As Miguel continued to play, something magical happened. His nervousness began to fade away. His hands became more confident on the keys. The music grew stronger and more passionate. Victoria watched Miguel's face as he played. She saw the fear leave his eyes and be replaced by joy. This was what Miguel was meant to do. This was who he really was underneath his janitor's uniform. The music filled every corner of the conference room. People in the audience began to realize they were hearing something very special. This was not just good piano playing. This was extraordinary. Miguel's fingers flew across the keys in the fast, difficult sections. The notes were so clear and perfect that they seemed to dance in the air. In the slow, sad parts, Miguel played with such feeling that some people in the audience began to cry. Victoria looked around the room. Everyone was completely focused on Miguel's performance. Office workers who usually ignored the cleaning staff were staring with amazement. Managers who thought they were better than janitors were listening with their mouths open. The concerto continued for almost 40 minutes. Miguel played every note perfectly, just like he had in Victoria's office late at night. But this time, he was sharing his gift with dozens of people instead of hiding it in the darkness. When Miguel reached the final, dramatic ending of the piece, the entire audience was holding its breath. The last notes rang out powerfully, then faded into silence. For a moment, nobody moved. The conference room was completely quiet. Miguel sat at the piano with his hands still on the keys, breathing hard from the effort of playing such a difficult piece. Then the applause began. It started with one person clapping, then spread to everyone in the room. People stood up and cheered. They clapped so hard and so long that Miguel looked confused and overwhelmed. "Incredible!" shouted someone from the audience. "Amazing!" called out another person. Victoria was clapping harder than anyone else. Tears were running down her cheeks, but she did not care who saw them. She was watching Miguel Santos, the quiet janitor who had just played the most beautiful music she had ever heard. Miguel stood up from the piano bench and bowed shyly. The applause continued for several more minutes. People were calling out compliments and asking questions. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Someone asked, "Have you ever performed professionally?" asked another person. Miguel looked overwhelmed by all the attention. He mumbled quiet answers and tried to get off the stage, but people kept stopping him to shake his hand and tell him how wonderful his playing was. Victoria watched all of this with a mixture of joy and sadness. Joy because Miguel was finally getting the recognition he deserved. Sadness because she realized how much talent had been hidden away, how many beautiful concerts the world had missed because Miguel was working as a janitor instead of performing as a musician. As the talent show ended and people began to leave, Victoria made her way through the crowd toward Miguel. She had been planning this moment for weeks, but now she was not sure what to say. Miguel was still surrounded by people congratulating him. When he saw Victoria approaching, his face turned pale. He probably thought he was in trouble for playing her piano without permission, but Victoria surprised him. She smiled warmly and extended her hand. "Miguel," she said clearly, so everyone nearby could hear, "that was the most beautiful performance I have ever heard. You played Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 perfectly." The people standing around them gasped. They all remembered Victoria's challenge from months ago. She had promised to marry any man who could play that piece perfectly. Miguel stared at Victoria with wide eyes. He could not believe that she was talking to him, much less praising his music. "I believe," Victoria said, her voice steady and clear, "we need to have a conversation." The conference room slowly emptied as people left the talent show, but many workers stayed to watch what would happen between Victoria and Miguel. Everyone remembered Victoria's challenge. She had promised to marry any man who could play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 perfectly. Miguel stood frozen next to the piano. He could not believe that Victoria Sterling, one of the richest women in America, was talking to him. His heart was beating so fast he thought everyone could hear it. "Miss Sterling," Miguel said quietly, "I am sorry if I did something wrong." "I can explain." Victoria held up her hand to stop him. "You did nothing wrong, Miguel. In fact, you did something absolutely amazing, but I think we should talk privately." Victoria looked at the crowd of people still watching them. "Everyone, thank you for coming to our talent show. Please enjoy the refreshments in the lobby. Miguel and I need to have a business discussion." People began to leave the conference room, though many of them looked curious about what Victoria and Miguel would talk about. Carlos Rivera patted Miguel on the shoulder before he left. "You did great, my friend," Carlos whispered. "I am proud of you." When the room was finally empty, Victoria and Miguel were alone. Miguel looked terrified. He thought Victoria was going to fire him or have him arrested for using her piano without permission. "Please sit down, Miguel," Victoria said gently. She pulled out a chair for him at one of the conference tables. Miguel sat down carefully. He kept his eyes on the floor and waited for Victoria to yell at him, but Victoria did not yell. Instead, she sat down across from Miguel and spoke in a kind voice. "Miguel, I know you have been playing my piano in my office late at night," Victoria said. Miguel's face turned white. "Miss Sterling, I am so sorry. I know I should not have touched your piano. I will pay for any damage. Please do not fire me. My family needs my job." "Miguel, look at me," Victoria said firmly. Miguel slowly raised his eyes to meet Victoria's gaze. He was surprised to see that she was smiling. "I am not angry with you," Victoria said. "I am amazed by you. You play piano better than anyone I have ever heard. Where did you learn to play like that?" Miguel was confused. Victoria was not angry? She was not going to fire him? "I learned when I was young," Miguel said slowly. "My grandmother taught me to play when I was 5 years old. Later, I studied at music school for a little while." "Tell me about music school," Victoria said. "Why did you leave?" Miguel told Victoria his story. He explained about his father's accident, his family's money problems, and his decision to leave school to work and help support his mother and sister. Victoria listened carefully to every word. "So you gave up your music career to take care of your family?" Victoria said when Miguel finished his story. "Music does not pay the bills," Miguel said sadly. "My family needed food and medicine more than I needed to play piano." Victoria was quiet for a long time. She was thinking about everything Miguel had told her. This man had sacrificed his dreams to help other people. He had worked hard jobs for 20 years, never complaining, never feeling sorry for himself. "Miguel," Victoria said finally, "do you remember the challenge I made in the lobby several months ago?" Miguel nodded. "You said you would marry any man who could play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 perfectly." "That's right," Victoria said, "and tonight you played it perfectly." Miguel's eyes grew wide. "But Miss Sterling, I am just a janitor." "You did not mean people like me. You meant rich men, important men." Victoria shook her head. "I said any man who could play the piece perfectly." I did not say anything about money or importance. You played it perfectly, Miguel. Better than perfectly. Miguel could not believe what he was hearing. Are you saying that you want to marry me? Victoria laughed softly. I'm saying that my challenge was foolish. I thought I could find love by testing men's piano skills, but love does not work that way. Victoria stood up and walked to the piano. She touched the keys gently. When I heard you play tonight, I realized something important, Victoria said. I was not looking for a man who could play beautiful music. I was looking for a man who understood beautiful music. Someone who felt it in his heart the same way? I do, Victoria turned back to Miguel. You do not just play notes, Miguel. You play emotions. You play stories. You play with your soul. Miguel felt tears coming to his eyes. No one had ever talked about his music this way before. But I am poor, Miguel said. I do not have nice clothes or a fancy car. I live in a small apartment with my sick mother. What could I offer someone like you? Victoria walked back to Miguel and sat down next to him. Miguel, I have been rich my whole life, Victoria said. I have had everything money can buy, but I have never met anyone who plays music the way you do. I have never met anyone who gave up his dreams to help his family. I have never met anyone as kind and generous as you. Victoria paused and looked directly into Miguel's eyes. Money cannot buy the kind of person you are, she said, and it cannot buy the music you have in your heart. Miguel was quiet for a long time. He was trying to understand what Victoria was telling him. Are you saying you want to be friends? Miguel asked. Victoria smiled. I'm saying I want to get to know you better. I want to learn about your music and your family and your dreams. I want to help you return to the musical career you deserve. But what about the money difference? Miguel asked. What about our different lives? Those things do not matter as much as you think, Victoria said. What matters is that we both love music. What matters is that you are a good man with a beautiful heart. Victoria reached out and took Miguel's hand. His hands were rough from years of cleaning work, but they were also the hands that had just played the most beautiful music she had ever heard. Miguel, I want to help you, Victoria said. I want to pay for your mother's medical bills so you do not have to worry about money. I want to help you return to music school if you want to. I want to help you share your gift with the world. Miguel could not speak. He had never imagined that anything like this could happen to him. Why would you do all of that for me? Miguel finally asked. Because music brought us together, Victoria said. Because you deserve to have your dreams come true. And because I think we could be very happy together if we give ourselves a chance. Miguel looked at Victoria for a long time. She was beautiful and rich and successful. But more importantly, she understood his music. She saw who he really was inside, not just his janitor's uniform. I would like that very much, Miguel said quietly. Victoria smiled. Good, but we will take things slowly. We will get to know each other as friends first. There is no pressure about marriage or anything else. We will just see what happens, Miguel nodded. What about my job? What about my family? You can keep working while we figure things out, Victoria said. But I also want to help your family. Right away. Your mother should have the best medical care available. Your sister should not have to worry about money for her baby. Miguel felt overwhelmed by Victoria's kindness. I do not know what to say. Say you will have dinner with me tomorrow night, Victoria said. We can talk more about music and dreams and the future. Miguel smiled for the first time since the talent show began. I would like that very much. 6 months later, Miguel was performing his first professional concert in 10 years. Victoria sat in the front row, watching the man she had fallen in love with share his beautiful music with a packed concert hall. Miguel was still nervous before big performances, but he was no longer afraid. Victoria had helped him return to music school to polish his skills. She had paid for his mother's medical treatment. She had made sure his family never had to worry about money again. But, most importantly, Victoria had seen the real Miguel Santos when everyone else saw only a janitor. She had recognized his worth when the rest of the world had made him invisible after the concert. Victoria and Miguel walked together to their car. They were engaged now, planning a small wedding for the following month. Miguel's mother was healthy and happy. His sister had gone back to school to become a nurse. His niece was learning to play piano from Uncle Miguel. "Do you ever regret making that challenge in the lobby?" Miguel asked Victoria as they drove home. Victoria laughed. "Never. It brought me to you. Even though I was not one of the rich men who accepted your challenge." Victoria stopped the car and looked at Miguel. "Especially because you were not one of those men. You were something much better. You were the man who was already perfect, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone to notice." Miguel took Victoria's hand and kissed it gently. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," Victoria replied. "And I love your music, always and forever." They drove home together, two people who had found love in the most unexpected place, through the universal language of beautiful music.